TUSD students falling behind.
It's not only concerning, it's my number one concern.
And alarm about climate change's impact on Arizona's main source of water.
Because this really does threaten the lifeblood of the Southwest.
Plus, colorful new crosswalks that have a meaning. This is Metro Week. Hi, I'm Vanessa Barchfield. Thanks for joining us. First up, an announcement. Andrea Kelly's been promoted to Assistant News Director at Arizona Public Media. I now have the great pleasure of serving as host and producer here on Metro Week. On this week's show, we'll meet up with TUSD's interim superintendent as he kicks off the school year. That and more after a look at the week's top stories from the Arizona Public Media newsroom.
A mystery that has baffled police and art historians in southern Arizona for 30 years has been solved. The William de Kooning painting, Woman Ochre, stolen from the University of Arizona Museum of Art in 1985, is back. The University of Arizona says the painting was discovered after it was purchased at an estate sale in Silver City, New Mexico. When the new owner realized what he had, he contacted the university to arrange for its return. The University of Arizona Museum of Art has scheduled a Monday news conference to show off the recovered painting. A judge refused to block a new state law making it easier for those opposing citizen initiatives to challenge petitions. The judge said the law poses no harm because it does not affect any pending initiatives. The judge did not rule on whether or not the new law is constitutional. It was one of hundreds of new laws that went into effect statewide on Wednesday. People in the United States are wiring more money to Mexico than ever before, and the American economy and politics had a key role in the increase. During the first half of the year, Mexican migrants sent back home almost $14 billion. That's the largest amount ever registered in that same time frame. Economists say remittances have been increasing for the past few years as the American economy keeps growing and Mexicans keep migrating to the U.S. They say those migrants may also want to move savings out of this country before new immigration laws come into play. For more on these stories, visit our website.
Leadership shakeups, teacher shortages, dropping enrollment, those are just a few of the challenges facing TUSD's interim superintendent. I met up with him as he visited Maxwell K-8 to find out how he's feeling as the new school year gets underway.
Well, what I'm really excited about is having all of our staff back and having us all focused on really the two critical actions we really need to take to increase student achievement. I think that it's no secret right now that our great challenges lie in the areas of student achievement in math and English language arts. So I'm excited to embark on this new school year to work with our staff to meet those challenges.
You mentioned student achievement. Of course, TUSD scored pretty poorly on the AZ merit test. Do you have any explanation for why? How concerning is that to you? And do you have a plan in place to improve those scores?
It's not only concerning, it's my number one concern. And it should be the number one concern of every adult in our system because it's the purpose for why we're here. And although Tucson Unified School District students have shown a little bit of improvement over a 3-year period, they are still not achieving the level of success that students in peer districts and around the state are. The challenge has been that up until this point, we haven't been as effective as we needed to be in making sure that every single teacher in the district understands the curriculum and has access to the documents and knows how to use it. So the one thing we're doing differently this year is we're making sure that all of their professional development and ongoing support is taking place during their workday and during the calendar year for them. To expect teachers to engage in professional development around something as vital as the district's curriculum during the summertime or after their work hours, that kind of sends an organizational message that our emphasis isn't on the written curriculum. And we have a responsibility to support our teachers and make sure that they get the training that they need during their professional workday.
Enrollment at TUSD has been dropping for the past decade. Trujillo says to turn that around, the district needs to improve in a few areas. And first, he says, registration needs to be easier.
When parents come into a school and they don't understand who the points of contact are to register their children, or they have a 60-page packet, that's a turnoff, and that can lead to people walking out the door.
Another area he wants to focus on is retention. He says TUSD needs to be able to intervene when kids start falling behind.
Before parents become frustrated and change their kids or decide that the Tucson Unified School District is not for them, or they're going to move, that we already have a team of people in place that steps in, intervenes, and provides alternatives and service for kids before the families feel frustrated and they have to leave the school.
And lastly, he says TUSD needs to step up its recruitment practices.
You can't just bank on the fact anymore that all of our Tucson Unified schools are just going to feed into each other, not in the age of open enrollment.
He says another threat to TUSD's future enrollment is school vouchers. Earlier this year, lawmakers passed a bill that would greatly expand the state's voucher program, making all school-aged kids eligible to apply and increasing the number of students that get state funding to pay for private school to 30,000 in the next 5 years. That law was set to take effect this week, but on Tuesday, the group Save Our Schools Arizona announced they had collected enough signatures to put it on hold, at least temporarily. State officials will now vet those signatures, and if the needed approximately 75,000 are deemed valid, voters will decide on the fate of school vouchers in the November 2018 election.
We, the people of Arizona, we've done the hard work to put SB 1431 on the ballot, and we know that Arizona will vote no.
I cannot support as an educator draining funding from the public school system, from the public schools that do truly take everybody, and putting that money into a separate system that allows a separate level of access and opportunity to a separate level of kids, namely kids that will attend parochial and private schools. Be that as it may, as an educational leader in the Tucson Unified School District, I can't throw my hands up, nor can our principals throw their hands up, or our teachers throw their hands up and say, well, that's just it. We have a responsibility to make sure that the public school option is so thoroughly better than the private option that parents have no other choice than to choose a Tucson Unified School District school. That means highly achieving schools. That means high quality performing arts, CTE programs, visual arts, and athletic programs in our schools. We have to do a better job in these areas. It also means safe schools. It means schools that parents can count on sending their kids that not only will care for them and keep them safe, but will provide the rigor that they need so the kids will achieve in math and language arts in all areas of the curriculum.
As usual, TUSD is facing a pretty severe teacher shortage. I think there are over 100 vacancies. Why is this teacher shortage such a continual problem at TUSD? And some other schools have started hiring teachers that don't have certification. I don't believe you're doing that. What's the reason for that?
We embrace teacher education. Being a former teacher myself and working with so many teachers, so many amazing teachers throughout my career, teaching is an art. It is a profession. And I'm not here saying that a four-year graduate who doesn't have a teacher education certification or is a non-certified educator, I'm not saying that that individual would be bad for kids. There's a lot of wonderful adults that can go into a classroom and be nice to kids and be mentors to kids and care for them and be compassionate. And these are great people. But if you're talking about the ability to take a complex topic or idea and break it down into digestible parts for multiple levels of learners, only a teacher can do that. Or the ability to take a same topic and teach it 3, 4, 5 different ways because you have 3 or 4 different levels of learners in your classroom. That's the art of teaching. And that's where teacher education programs can never be replaced. I do fully support making the entrance to the classroom easier. I've always been a full supporter of emergency certification. I do believe that somebody with a four-year degree should be able to come into a classroom and make an immediate impact, with the understanding that they're simultaneously enrolled in a continuing education program that would eventually lead to full certification.
Trujillo's been on the job since March. He replaced H.T. Sanchez, who resigned just before the school board was set to vote on firing him. This week, the board announced that Trujillo's one of 4 finalists for the permanent post. Whether it's him or someone else, I asked Trujillo what he thinks the school district needs in its next leader.
The school district really needs a superintendent that views the position as one of public service. I don't think a superintendent is going to be successful coming in here with sort of a top-down approach to management, that sort of I'm the executive and everybody else I'm here to direct everybody else. I think a superintendent will be successful coming in here and really viewing the position a lot like kind of a mayorship, where you're here to serve the city and you're here to serve the community, which means being willing to be highly visible, be willing to take the feedback, even if the feedback isn't always positive, and not get defensive, and be willing to meet with those that are truly frustrated with the district, being able to sit down with our partner institutions and take an honest dose of feedback about what the district's shortcomings are, what the district's challenges are, and also be ready to celebrate the great things that the employees do each and every day throughout the system. There are a lot of passionate opinions about what the Tucson Unified School District needs to be successful. And I think a superintendent, in order to be successful, has to kind of take those opinions and take the best of them and try to find a way to bring them all together.
All 4 of the finalists for the TUSD superintendent job will appear at public forums next week. For details, visit our website, news.azpm.org. Now we head to 4th Avenue, where rainbow-colored crosswalks were installed this week. We ask, is 4th Avenue Tucson's most LGBTQ-friendly street? It's hard to miss, whether you're on foot, bike, or driving past. Arizona's first rainbow crosswalk, right in the heart of 4th Avenue.
This is a 100-year-old business district, and it's full of hippies, entrepreneurs, and people who love people. This 4th Avenue is the heartbeat of Tucson, and we could not be more proud to be the host and steward of the Rainbow Crosswalk in our community.
4th Avenue is certainly a very diverse and robust community, and we want to welcome people down. We want people to feel that they have a place to come, and so this crosswalk made sense here. It doesn't make sense anywhere else in Tucson.
The 4th Avenue Merchants Association worked with City Councilwoman Karen Ulick and the Southern Arizona AIDS Foundation on the project.
It's been something that we've been talking about for the last several years, and honestly in the last 2 years we've been able to really push to make strides to make this project happen. It's a beautiful art installation, and clearly there's also a message behind it.
So this crosswalk represents the community coming together to show inclusivity, equity, diversity, love in Tucson. Those are some Tucson values that define us as a community.
A lot of people from across the community took part, including Lucas Boring, whose company, Speedy Striping, donated the materials and labor for the crosswalks.
Yeah, we pulled in all-nighter to get this one done.
Across the depth and breadth of human existence, we find what seems to be a nearly universal desire, the wish to be accepted just as we are. Sadly, though, many who stand here today have lived much of their lives with a lack of such acceptance, not least those who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer.
The 6 colors of these crosswalks are meant to send a clear message to Tucson's LGBTQ community.
I don't know about you, but I've spent a lot of time in new places searching around for this flag, hoping to find a kindred spirit who was proud, who had courage, and who could send me this message: we're safe, we're valued, we're loved. I'm so proud to be a member of the LGBTQ community, and I'm so proud to be in this city, our community, and to stand with the 4th Avenue Merchants and Speedy Striping and SAFE and all of you to make it just so crystal clear that our community loves us and we belong here.
So I really wasn't expecting a certain thing. I'm just happy, a lot of people came out today and showed their support for the, Rainbow Road, which is pretty cool. I think the colors look great. Even my mom called me yesterday. She's like, "Hey, you should get a 6th and 4th. It looks really cool." And I was like, "Yeah, I know, Mom. I'll get there."
Plata says she's seen some pushback to the rainbows. And in fact, just hours before the unveiling, white paint was thrown at one of the crosswalks in an act of vandalism. It's been cleaned up, but some people at the event say it's a sign of the times.
You see things on social media and people just have these really just horrible, kind of ignorant comments, and think that the rainbow flag or anything related to the LGBT community is something negative, and being gay is a choice, and just kind of, I don't know, it's kind of hurtful, I would say. But, you know, everyone has their own opinion, so you kind of just have to go along with it.
Adam Reagan says he doesn't want LGBTQ kids to just go along with it. And his organization, the Southern Arizona AIDS Foundation, is working on opening a space on 4th Avenue that'll be more than just a symbol of how welcome they are here.
So the Thornhill Lopez Center on 4th, which will be opening later this year, is a safe space for LGBTQ and allied youth to come after school and access programming services, work with staff, create art, curate art, and work on projects with community collaborators. The program is called EON, and it's been in existence for a very long time, and was at another nonprofit that closed, and they came over to the Southern Arizona AIDS Foundation a few years ago, and we decided instead of just putting them in a small office space that we would create a community center for them, and that's where the impetus for the Thornhill Lopez Center came from.
The center will open just a few steps from the new Rainbow Crosswalks, a place for kids to come and
be themselves and just hang out and not have to worry about anything but being a kid and being their fabulous, fantastic selves.
We'll take you inside the Thornhill Lopez Center when it opens later this year. Now on to climate change, which is leading to a rapid decline in Arizona's main source of water, the Colorado River. New research from U of A climate scientists Jonathan Overpeck and Colorado State University's Brad Udall predicts that the river's flow could drop by 50% by the year 2050. I sat down with Overpeck to talk about how that could change life as we know it in this state and across the American Southwest.
Well, we'll have to start cutting back in our use of water, that a lot of the water now, most of it goes to agricultural uses, and so that'll see some declines. It'll probably also make the cost of water for municipal and business applications go up significantly, and eventually there'll just be not enough water for everything we want to do. So it'll force the Southwest to sort of curb the growth that we've seen in the past.
How seriously should we desert dwellers be taking this threat?
I think more than any other people in the United States, perhaps, except for the guys that are on the sea coast where the sea level rise is occurring, because this really does threaten the lifeblood of the Southwest and the broader western region. Climate change is knocking back our water supply, and it will knock it back a lot more if we allow climate change to continue.
And what policy changes would you like to see our leaders making in order to prepare for these changes?
Well, we have a lot of really clever people, particularly in the water management sector, but also forestry, where you're obviously seeing forest dying and more wildfire. A lot of what we can do that's regardless of politics is adapt to these drier, hotter times and learn to use less water. Learn to manage forests for change rather than trying to keep them the way they are. But eventually that'll be overwhelmed because the loss of our water supply, the heat, the warming will be so great that it'll be very hard for adaptation strategies to do the job. And so we'll have to literally curtail what we're doing here in the Southwest, curtail the growth. And so what I've been arguing is that we should really pay attention to the cause of the problem and try and deal with the cause, which is the emission of greenhouse gases, mainly from burning of fossil fuel. That is what's really cooking the Southwest. And if we don't start dealing with that soon, the changes that I've been talking about are going to be baked in, and we'll have to adapt to them no matter what. But the sooner we act to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, say like California is trying hard to do, the sooner the problem itself will be solved.
Their policies and then their people. I asked Peck what changes individuals can make to be part of the solution.
Well, there are lots of little things we can do, and I think a lot of people in Arizona already do that. We use our water wisely, we use our electricity wisely, but in the end that won't be enough. We really need to all work together to convince our political leaders that it should be a priority for the United States, starting in Arizona, to come up with policies that reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, reduce our dependence on fossil fuel, and move into clean energy. And that's a win-win for Arizona because a lot of those solutions involve solar power, wind power, the kinds of things that would make Arizona job growth go through the roof because we have such a unlimited supply of sunshine and wind.
If you had to give us a grade, how are we doing as Arizonans right now?
Well, I think we're making real progress, but we're in the C- range right now. I mean, I really worry that this part of the country is literally going to be toast if we don't get moving at a much faster pace.
What's your response to people that say, the climate has always changed and the science is unclear on whether or not it's actually linked to human activity?
Well, I say they're either listening to the fossil fuel industry, the big oil, or the people who work for them. We know with great confidence why the Earth is warming. We know that it's not part of some natural cycle or variation. We know, it's just known with great confidence. And not only that, it's really known with great confidence that if we don't curb the greenhouse gas emissions, it will continue to warm. And that warming will knock back our water supply, and it'll certainly affect our forests, our vegetation. It'll affect public health because it'll allow a lot more infectious disease to come from warmer latitudes to the south. So all these things we know really well now, and there's just no getting around that. So I say it's a bunch of bull to ignore it.
More than 70% of the water in the Colorado River is used to irrigate agricultural land, field after field, growing the food that's eaten all over the U.S. I asked Peck what farmers need to do as water supplies dwindle.
Well, growers, the people who are the farmers, are innovating as quick as everyone else to use less water, to use it more wisely, to get more money out of each drop, say. And I think that has to continue. But at some point we will be forced to choose between water for the cities and waters for the farms. And that's a major economic sector here in the Southwest. It's nice to have our food coming from nearby. Once we have to start importing it from further away, then of course that has embedded costs in terms of carbon dioxide as well. So you can only do so much with farming. The other thing about farming is these fallow fields, the abandoned fields that would result, those are the big reasons we have these dust storms. And these fields have a lot of chemicals that have piled up in the soil over the years, and that's in the dust storms. And with the drying, no one in Arizona wants to see a big uptick in dust storms, but we're already starting to see that. So this will become a much dustier part of the country, and getting out of agriculture will speed that up.
What are some other ways Arizona is vulnerable to climate change?
Well, a lot of people don't think about this, but I think everyone knows that if we have a natural disaster somewhere else in the country, all the taxpayers pay, our economy pays. And we're about to start seeing some really major disasters on the coasts of America, particularly the Gulf Coast and the Atlantic Coast, Florida, New Orleans. These places are going to increasingly be flooded, and people are going to have to retreat inland, and we're going to lose a lot of infrastructure, and it's going to cost enormous amounts of money, both for our insurance rates, but also the federal government will be bailing everyone out. We know that always happens. So that will affect our whole country's economic well-being, and I think our own pocketbooks.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
You may be wondering how it's been working as a climate scientist during Trump's presidency.
It's very depressing to see what's going on in Washington now. It's clear in my mind that the fossil fuel industry sort of runs the country in terms of our climate policy, and the Trump administration seems to be perfectly okay with that. Coal jobs are disappearing not because we're trying to get away from climate change. It's because coal's too expensive now relative to natural gas and even some of the renewable energy sources. So coal is going away no matter what. And those jobs, they've already gone away, as the coal mines become more automated and fewer and farther between. So I'm really sad in a sense that the current administration is willing to kowtow to one industry at the expense of the country. That just doesn't seem American.
Do you have any areas that you can point out to, sort of areas of hope or positive change happening?
Well, again, I always like to point to say what California is doing as a state. Notice that California has one of the most robust, fastest growing economies in the whole country, and they also are cutting greenhouse gas emissions more aggressively than any other state. But there are other states doing that. There are a lot of cities. Tucson is trying hard to join other cities to curb emissions. Most people in America live in cities, so that's very encouraging. But the rate of all of this is just too slow, I worry, to save the day for the Southwest and our water supply and our forests and why everyone wants to live here in this beautiful part of the country.
You're leaving the University of Arizona for a new post at the University of Michigan. What will you be doing there, and why did you decide to take that step?
It was a really hard decision because there are so many great environmentally oriented scholars and professors and students here at the University of Arizona. This is a powerhouse. But the University of Arizona has stepped back from their investment in the environment, and I hope it's only temporary. And my dream is to really have an impact in helping universities, or accelerating the way universities help society. And I think I can do a lot more at the University of Michigan just because they're very eager to have a bigger impact in society and really help solve problems like climate change. But there's so many other problems that are environment and sustainability oriented. I hope to be working with colleagues there to really make a difference in society.
And you're setting up a new institute there, correct?
No, well, I'm actually setting up a new school, which is equivalent to a college at the University of Michigan, and it's going to cut across the entire university. And the University of Michigan is a substantially bigger university with a much bigger research enterprise, and a lot of students are going to be involved in this process. And the idea is that everything at the University of Michigan is going to really start focusing on, at least in part, sustainability, making the world a better place for future generations, not just our own generation.
That's it for us. Next week, a conversation with a self-described Umbraphile. Tune in next Friday to find out what exactly that means. We leave you now with a sample of AZPM's upcoming documentary, Arizona and the Vietnam War. As a boy, Keith Connolly dreamed of flying. Fortunately, Phoenix turned out to be the perfect place to launch his dream of becoming a seasoned fighter pilot. Keith served 2 tours in Vietnam.
I first started out at North High in Phoenix, Arizona. And then after a while, I kind of became interested in aviation. And there was Phoenix Technical High School in those days. And so I ended up graduating from Phoenix Technical School because it offered an aeronautical course down there where you could literally work on airplanes. I got interested in aviation quite early in my life. I went to Phoenix College, 2-year college in those days, and worked as a service station attendant. After I started flying then at Phoenix College, I applied for the Air Force. I wanted to be a pilot. It's around the 1964 timeframe, and I was in then the F-100 Super Sabre, and I was a combat-ready pilot. A lot of people wanted to get to Vietnam because everybody figured it'll be over tomorrow. This is going to be over tomorrow. The Yanks are coming. We're fighting a bunch of third world country people. Once we show them what we can do, it's going to change the outcome. So were we wrong? We terribly underestimated the capability of the enemy. We certainly underestimated their endurance and their ability to fight for their cause. In 1969, things had changed, okay? One, it was no longer a, quote, adventure. It was the beginning of what I call the disillusionment of Vietnam, meaning my wife, as an example, was then staying in a home that we rented in Phoenix, Arizona, because our family was there. And when our neighbors found out that I was in Vietnam as a pilot, they wouldn't talk to her. They shunned her. So that was the start of that sort of activity, if you will, if you happen to be a military man. I think 1969, 1970 was really the beginning of the end of our love affair, if you will, for fighting in Vietnam.
What are your memories of the Vietnam War? Share your stories with us by visiting our website, azpm.org/Vietnam. This September, watch for the new AZPM original documentary, Arizona and the Vietnam War, and an epic 10-part, 18-hour film series, The Vietnam War, from directors Ken Burns and Lynn Novick. in September on PBS 6.